10 August 2015, Nakhon Ratchasima, Thailand. Just want to make a comment about Ben Ferguson show, which I listen to quite often. He's supposed to be a conservative, but one of the problems that we have today with any political vintage, whether it's conservative, liberal, progressive, Democrat, Republican, independent, whatever, is that we have knee-jerk reactions to everything and try to shove down our interpretation of what a person said or meant down their throat without any leeway. And I think this is what's being done right now with Donald Trump. And according to this Megyn Kelly issue that's supposed to have come up here and during the debate, which I watched on replay. And in fact, Trump's comments were distasteful. There's no question about it. I find more distasteful President Bush's comments about Iraq posing a 45-minute imminent danger to the United States, then unleashing the armed might of the United States against Iraq. And today, what do we have? An entire nation completely destroyed and hundreds of thousands of people dead as a result of bad decisions. You cannot blame this on Donald Trump. Donald Trump's comments during the first debate here toward Megyn Kelly are one thing. What he was saying, however, he raised his hand initially at the question, remember, whether all the candidates on stage would support the GOP candidate if that candidate, that nominee, was not to their liking. Trump raised his hand and said no, he wouldn't support him or her. And there's nothing wrong with this. Trump reflected exactly what the American voter does. When a nominee is brought forth and confirmed, whether it's Republican or Democrat or an independent, the American voter then has a chance to make up his or her mind whether to support that nominee or not. In Trump's case, if he were the, it's far-fetched, it's probably not going to happen, but if he were the GOP nominee for President of the United States, that's one thing. If he stays in the race long enough to be seriously considered for it and the GOP opts not to nominate him, and then he goes ahead and, again, this is not likely, fights against a nominee or refuses to support that nominee, then the overall opinion of mainstream media in the States is that this is undermining the chances of a Republican candidate, a Republican nominee, to actually win the 2016 election as president. And in fact, as a bona fide golden anniversary Republican myself, I am a liberal conservative or a conservative liberal, whichever way you want to look at it. My opinions on issues and people and circumstances vary depending on those circumstances. And in Trump's case, he's not going to make it to the stage where he will be the GOP nominee. It's foregone conclusion. As far as his presidential qualifications are concerned, in my opinion, I think that's a good thing that he won't make it. But it's also a good thing that Trump is there fighting right now and expressing views, because much of what he expresses is being felt in anguish by millions of Americans around our country and around the world. We want our country back. We want the borders secured. We want socialism removed as a mandatory form of government, and we want democracy back. We want our republic back. And Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, the Clintons period, Bush's, doesn't matter which dynasty you want to bring in, none of them is good for the United States. So far-fetched as it could be, if Trump were to be, say, nominated by the GOP as its candidate, I would support him out of a conviction that much of what he says is worth listening to, and like most other candidates who are eventually brought into office, he will change his mind and his position on a great deal. You can't just walk into the White House as President of the United States and advocating your positions that you've maintained during pre-election times, go ahead and start enforcing them, because it won't work. People will bail out. People will fight. Bad consequences will result. Trump probably knows this. He's not a child. And yet some people, like Ben Ferguson on his show, want to say that Donald Trump is actually undermining the GOP and wants it to lose the election in 2016. And such a maligning of what Trump stands for, what he probably meant during the debate when he said he would not guarantee support for the GOP nominee. There's nothing wrong with that. There's not an American voter that I know of that would automatically support any candidate, no matter who they were or what they said or what they did or where they came from. Everybody makes an individual decision, and Trump said, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do as an American. This is what I want to do as a Republican. This is what I want to do as a candidate for the office of President of the United States in 2016. So a lot of people don't like that. They figure, oh, team player means agreement. It doesn't. It doesn't. Any good leader and any team coordinator will have to have people on his team that can work with each other but don't have to agree with one another. And Ben Ferguson, I think, like many, whether they're on the conservative, liberal, or progressive side, atheist or Christian, whatever your particular bailiwick at the time, none of these people are really looking at what Trump probably meant. They're just trying to shove their interpretation down his throat. I'm not trying to do that here. I'm just trying to propose that perhaps what he said was reasonable in context, and in fact a slap in the face at the GOP that needs a good slap in the face from time to time, because so far all the other slaps that it's gotten right up to now don't seem to have phased it. You still got some terrible leadership in the GOP sitting there in Washington that need to be kicked out, voted out, have their appointments withdrawn, and so on. But it's not going to happen. The GOP will probably lose the 2016 election. That does not mean that I, as a Republican, will not vote Republican. It also doesn't mean that I will not vote Democrat. I may. It depends on who's running. It depends on who the candidate is. But because I feel that my vote matters as an American citizen, and in my opinion as well, you should not be able to vote unless you are an American citizen, period. That my vote as an American citizen matters, and I'll cast it. I may cast it for the Democrat, even though it's a candidate I don't like in many ways, but overall, the differences between the two candidates, whether Republican or Democrat, will come to weigh on my final decision to vote. And Trump said this during the debate. That's exactly what he said, in my belief. He didn't say, I'm trying to ruin the Republican Party. I'm trying to destroy the GOP. This is for Ben Ferguson and anybody else to advocate that that was what Trump was trying to do, or what he was doing, is sheer nonsense. Sorry, Ben, I usually like your show, but this time you messed up. Frank G. Anderson, Korat, Thailand.